Hi, this is Tamika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle, another episode of the Seeds We Plant series. And this is where we're looking at those words, those actions, those thoughts that we end up planting in others in the future generation. We wonder why we're experiencing certain things. We wonder why we're still experiencing teenage pregnancy. We wonder why we're still experiencing homicides and suicides. We wonder why we're still experiencing divorce and adultery and all of this other stuff that's going on in our world, including, success and including, people becoming president, and it's unheard of, in history that that's ever happened, and including just all the work that we're doing. Everything that we do on earth stems from thought. We read about that, even, reading about the Bible, how everything was made by the word that was spoken, or the thought that came from that. And so when we're looking at thoughts, when we're looking at patterns, when we're looking at projected pain, it's not about blaming, shaming. And that's the word of the week where I discuss on my podcast, Healing from the Inside Out series, which is basically, to me, that kind of, goes with this planning and taking care of our garden. But healing from the inside out, where I talk about release and shame and how we can do that. But it's those seeds that we're planting unconsciously, many of it's often, and consciously within our children. Those, we wonder about hatred, divisiveness, prejudice. We wonder about violence, suicide, homicides. We wonder about teenage pregnancy. We wonder about drunk driving, or drinking and driving. We wonder about all these actions, and we're trying to get at those actions, but we also too need to pay attention to, and many of the programs do, but we can do this at home. Pay attention to the thoughts, because as my mother often told us, her children, nothing occurs overnight. Nothing happens overnight. It is the thoughts, are the words, the actions that our children see, that we take into our internal garden, our inner soil, our hearts, our minds, that we take in. And as over time, those thoughts are fertilized with love or hate, especially as children, where we're very vulnerable and our soil is very fertile. It can be fertile even in a loving state, it can be fertile in a fearful state. And it's that like-minded fertilizer that tends to grow that within us. So when we talk about, childhood trauma, or, abuse and neglect, over the years, if we don't intercept that garden, if we don't change those thoughts that have entered, if we don't assess and pay attention and observe, what kind of thoughts are we having? My son was sharing how, when he was going to one of his schools, how he heard someone saying that the kid was listening to something in his room, and it was really loud, and he knew that his parents had heard that. And then I wonder, because I'm wondering, why is my son experiencing all this profanity in school, these profanity remarks, and just inappropriate behavior and sayings. And then, I'm hearing that they're hearing this stuff, they're listening to this stuff. And again, it's not about blaming and shaming, but it's about making us more aware, because that's the process of evolution. We become more aware of our surroundings. We become more aware of what our children are listening to, or what they're saying, and how they're interacting with other children. We become more aware of that. But we're such in a busy lifestyle. Often, many of us, we're trying to pay bills. I get it. Being a parent, trying to make money, trying to be there for our children. And some balls do drop. They do drop. But as we look at our priorities, as we look at, providing for our children, that no amount of money, and you've seen it, no amount of money, no amount of bill paying can often intercept negative, harmful behavior. It is when we take the time to really observe and to listen to our children and listen to ourselves. Because, when you think about the children, our children, they come here, they look to us for their way. How am I going to navigate this life, mom? Even though they don't say it, but they're looking at you as babies, as infants. You're the one that's here to take care of me. And as we grow older, you're the one that's going to help me navigate this life, right? And if we know that our actions are the ones that will allow us to see what has grown inside of us, then we need to be observant of that. We need to talk to our children. We need to assess what they're going through. And I was actually looking at a video yesterday about Mind Valley, and it was talking about energy work, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. Is that, and I didn't even realize it as a child, but I would, when someone would say something, they'd say something negative. You're going to experience this. You're like this. You're always this. And I knew it wasn't coming from, how do I put it? It wasn't something helpful that was being said. It was something as if they were angry, they were upset, and sometimes unconsciously saying something that could be very damaging, right? And I didn't care who it was, but I knew enough that whenever I saw those fog of words come, I would, in my mind, mentally push it back to them, right? Push it back to them, because when we give people their ownership of their pain, they have to look at that. Because there are a lot of people, and I got the words when I was in Oregon, living in Oregon. You picked up stuff that didn't belong to you. Many of us have so much negative energy inside of us, right? Often, that we're trying to release something we picked up. But my thing is, if we can stop that, if we can see a person's heart and realize the projection of pain is not ours to take, we can minimize the amount of energy work that we have to do. Now, there are things that come into our garden, just like birds that pick up seeds off the ground and they fly up. And guess what? Those seeds kind of just drop wherever. So there are things that come into our spirit, come into our being, our inner garden, that we don't even realize that we have it until we actually assess our garden, until we actually go out there and really look and assess the ground. Like I had mentioned in another podcast, where I went outside one day and I was looking at my garden, so happy, novice gardener, right? Got a garden finally, a big garden finally. And I'm looking outside and I look in between I was looking at a plant, I think it was a squash, and I happened to see a vine actually wrapped around, as if it was wrapped around the neck, kind of choking it, taking off its oxygen air supply. And I knew then, I said, that's a weed, even though it looked pretty. I was looking at it, I wasn't even sure it was a weed or not. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, it's robbing the nutrients from that plant. It's stealing off the nutrients to make itself bigger, to make itself larger. And you've seen this principle before, where people will project their pain on you, or put labels on you to basically stamp you, and to minimize you so that they can appear larger, right? It's a false sense of power, is what we're talking about. And if we are not careful and allow those weeds to continue to do that, when I think about weeds, I think about harmful thoughts, unhealthy thoughts like shame, guilt, consistent anger, resentment, vengeance, all of those. And so we have the ability to not only, continually assess our garden, but also to evaluate the message that are the seeds that are coming towards us, right? That energy that is coming towards us. Um, I have seen it before, where I've been sitting at my desk I was in Oregon at my desk, and I literally felt like there was a fog that was coming my way. I started coughing, and I thought, I was like, I can't do this. I can't have a cold right now. And just as soon as I said that, immediately I said, I can't afford to have a cold right now. I literally could feel the fog leaving me. When I was sitting on my couch one day in St. Louis, and I was feeling negative about myself, it was like I felt the fog above me, and I invited it into my being. And for years, I, just really trying to pull up those weeds, realizing they were weeds, and trying to pull those up. But I do believe in this energy work. I do believe that we end up taking stuff that doesn't belong to us, and then we wonder why we're talking, eating, being, seeing, acting like someone else, because we have taken on their energy. As I put out there today in social media, energy is transferable. We have to be cognizant of the people that we are around. I was talking to a client one day, and she was talking to me, and it was almost like she had the same voice, but it was like she was saying what had been so said to her in this voice, and I felt like she was talking like a man. I told her that. I said, "You're talking like a man. You're talking like as if someone has said that to you." And she said, "Yes, my husband has said those things to me." I said, "You must sound just like him." She said, "I do. I did." And it's amazing how we don't realize how impactful people can be on our actions and our thoughts and our behavior, that somehow those seeds of all the things he said about her had taken root inside of her, had grown to a harvest that eventually she started talking like him, becoming like him. And that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to become like others. We're here to be ourselves. And the way that we do that is that we have to continually to assess our garden and to purify, to remove those weeds out. When we find ourselves saying things or thinking like someone else, then we have to say, okay, wait a minute, that is like such and such. That is like this person. And we have to really ground ourselves and sit with ourselves and say, I need to release that. That is not me. And I think, and I remember doing that a lot as a child, but have can honestly tell you, I've allowed a lot of stuff to enter my garden, and then I wonder why I'm experiencing what experiencing, and it's just slowly dawning on me, this is what you have allowed inside. Because I used to be one like this, that's yours, and you can keep that. And I would feel so free inside. I would feel not empty, but I would feel so clear and clean inside, you know? So it's not to say that people, their energy is dirty. I'm saying I would feel like myself. I didn't feel like I was trying to be somebody else, right? And so as we take time as caregivers, as parents, that's part of it, where we sit and we really observe the words that we're saying, that we observe our actions, and we observe our, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to be like someone else? And why are we trying to do that? Why are we rejecting ourselves? What part of ourselves are we rejecting? Because again, whoever we are somehow putting that on, are sowing seeds on the next generation. And then we wonder about the cycle. We wonder why our children are wanting to be like someone else. They're doing certain behaviors. They're not like themselves. We often hear that when people do things, they weren't themselves. And so it's so important for us to, yes, do the energy work. That, I think that's very important. I'm not an energy practitioner, other than what I have done in my own life, and realizing it, I can say, oh man, I sound like that person, I sound like them. And it's like, then you start putting it together. It's like seeds have been sown in me. I've taken on that energy. I've taken on that persona of that person. And we don't have to do that. We're not here for that. We're here to be ourselves. We're here to be unique expressions of this macrocosm, this spirit, this infinite intelligence, whatever you may call it, this energy, this major energy that created us all, that this energy that is allowing our bodies to work like they should, the heart to pump, the lungs to to inflate and inflate the digestive system, move along the foods through the body. We have that power, that energy inside of us, and we're not here to take on others' energy, but to really to express our energy, our unique energy, if you will. And it's about really, if we can, like my mom would say, nip things in the bud, stop things before they start. And it's all about taking the time to be in present. We got so many reasons why we should be, right? But if we live in the present and we really pay attention to what we are doing, when we stop for a moment, that is a major break in the cycle of pain. Observing, becoming more aware, increasing consciousness, spiritual awakening, and we can see the impact that we can have on future generations if we just encourage them to be themselves, to give that projected pain, that bullying, we hear about teenage suicide, adolescent suicide, where people are taking their lives because of what someone said and what they did and what they didn't do and what they didn't say. To know, to see people hearts, to really sow that seed of really understanding that often people who hurt other people, and that it's not your fault, and that you're not to take that in, that you are to give that energy back to the person, no matter who they are. Because the more you hold somebody accountable for their behaviors, the more you increase their chances of a spiritual awakening, the more you increase their chances of creating the next generational cycle of love. This is Tamika Chambers with the Seeds We Plant series, and discussing energy work and giving the energy back, the negative, the harmful energy back to people so that we can be ourselves, our true selves. You can find out more about me on tamikaschambers.com. Please feel free. I would love for you to join if you're all about fulfilling your purpose and doing it in such a way that we are creating a generational cycle of love, that we are loving our bodies, appreciating the vehicles that our creator has given us to take care of. If you're wanting to provide that additional support and have that community, join Fulfill Your Divine Purpose. I've just relaunched my newsletters on notes on life, where I send empowering messages to help you be more of you, right? Because that's what it's all about, becoming more of you, not anyone else, not a famous singer, dancer, not trying to say anything about anybody else, but to really express who you are with those divine gifts, talents, and the experiences that intertwine with your divine self, divine being, and express the truth that is inside of that is inside of you. Each and every one of us carries the seeds of truth, the spiritual fruit. And it's about assessing that garden, getting it to where it is, where it needs to be to really express who we are. I'll talk to you guys soon. As always, make this lifetime great, because you still can.